When my son-in-law Michael told me, "We don't need you anymore," during our family dinner, I quietly smiled and excused myself from the table. By the next morning, I had called my estate attorney to completely rewrite my $67 million will. And that was just the beginning. Justice had to happen. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening in the comments. My name is James Patterson, and I'm 74 years old. I built my fortune in the tech industry over 45 years of hard work. Started with nothing but an idea for computer software back in the 1980s. Today, my net worth sits at $67 million. I own 3 companies, commercial real estate, and a stock portfolio that keeps growing every year. My wife Helen died from cancer 6 years ago after 42 years of marriage. She was the love of my life and my business partner in everything. We had one daughter together named Lisa, who is now 41 years old. Lisa married a man named Michael 8 years ago, and they have 2 children together. My granddaughter Emma is 12 years old, and my grandson Tyler is 9 years old. For most of Lisa's life, our relationship was close and loving. I helped her through college and supported her dreams of becoming a teacher. When Lisa got married, I welcomed Michael into our family with open arms. I thought he was a good man who would take care of my daughter. I was excited about being a grandfather and staying close to their growing family. But something started changing about 3 years ago when my wealth became more obvious. I bought a bigger house in an expensive neighborhood after Helen died. I started driving nicer cars and taking expensive vacations to deal with my grief. Lisa and Michael began treating me differently when they saw my lifestyle improving. Michael started making comments about my spending and my age during family visits. "James, don't you think you're getting too old to be buying sports cars? Maybe you should be more careful with your money at your age. Lisa and I worry about you making smart financial decisions." These comments bothered me, but I ignored them because I wanted peace in the family. Lisa also began acting strange around me, especially when we talked about money or the future. She would ask questions about my business and investments that seemed too curious. "Dad, how much is your company worth these days? What happens to your money when you're gone? Have you thought about estate planning for the family?" I thought she was just concerned about my future, but now I realized she was planning for hers. Last year, Michael quit his job as a sales manager to start his own business. The problem was, his business wasn't making any money, and they were struggling financially. Lisa was still teaching elementary school, but her salary wasn't enough to support their lifestyle. They had bought an expensive house and 2 new cars before Michael quit his stable job. That's when they started coming to me for financial help more and more often. "Dad, can you help us with the mortgage payment this month? Michael's business needs more startup capital to get going. The kids need new clothes and school supplies." At first, I was happy to help because I loved my daughter and grandchildren. Over the past year, I probably gave them about $50,000 in various forms of help: house payments, car repairs, business loans, and everyday expenses that they couldn't cover. But Michael never seemed grateful for my assistance. He acted like I owed them the money because I was wealthy and they were family. 3 weeks ago, something happened that really bothered me about Michael's attitude toward my generosity. I had just given him $10,000 to help with his failing business. Instead of thanking me, he complained that it wasn't enough money to solve his problems. "James, 10,000 doesn't go very far these days," he said. "We really need more substantial help if you want to make a difference." I started to realize that Michael saw me as a bank account rather than as Lisa's father. Every conversation was about money or what I could do for their family financially. He never asked about my health, my loneliness since Helen died, or how I was adjusting to retirement. Our relationship was purely transactional from his perspective. Lisa seemed to go along with Michael's attitude, which hurt me even more. She would call me when they needed money, but rarely just to talk or visit. When I suggested family activities that didn't involve giving them cash, they were always too busy or had other plans. But when they needed financial help, they suddenly had time for their old dad. 2 weeks ago, I decided to test their real feelings about me as a person versus my money. I invited them over for dinner and told them I was thinking about selling one of my companies. I mentioned that I might donate most of the money to charity instead of leaving it all to family. Lisa and Michael exchanged worried looks, but didn't say much during that conversation. But last Sunday, everything changed during what seemed like a normal family dinner at my house. I had cooked everyone's favorite meal and was enjoying time with my grandchildren. After dinner, the adults were sitting in my living room while the kids played video games. That's when Michael decided to show me exactly how he really felt about our relationship. The conversation started innocently enough about my recent vacation to Europe. But then Michael made a comment that revealed his true character and priorities about family relationships. Now let me tell you exactly how I built my $67 million fortune while Lisa and Michael learned to take everything for granted. This story starts 45 years ago, when I was just 29 years old, with a crazy idea about computer software. Most people thought personal computers were just toys back then. But I could see that businesses would need software to manage their operations as technology advanced. I started Patterson Software Solutions in my garage with $5,000 in savings and a dream. Helen believed in me when nobody else did, including her own family. "James, if you think this computer thing has a future, then I'm with you," she told me. We lived on beans and rice for 2 years while I developed my first business management program for small companies. The breakthrough came when a local manufacturing company bought my software for $15,000. That was more money than I had made in 6 months at my old job. Within a year, I had 10 companies using my software, and word was spreading about how it could save businesses time and money. Helen quit her job to help me run the company full-time. By the time Lisa was born, Patterson Software was making real money. We had 15 employees and contracts with over 100 businesses across 3 states. But I never forgot where we came from or how hard we had worked to build something from nothing. Helen and I lived modestly and reinvested most of our profits back into growing the business. The real success came in the 1990s when businesses started computerizing everything. My software was perfectly positioned for companies that needed to upgrade their systems. We went from $1 million in annual revenue to $10 million in just 3 years. That's when I started my second company, Patterson Data Services, to handle the technical support side of the business. But I made sure Lisa grew up with normal values despite our growing wealth. She had chores, earned her allowance, and worked part-time jobs during high school. "Lisa, money doesn't make you better than other people," I taught her. "It just gives you more responsibility to help others." Helen and I wanted her to understand the value of hard work and treating people with respect. When Lisa went to college, I paid for her education, but she had to maintain good grades and work study jobs. She couldn't just coast through school because her father was successful. Lisa seemed to appreciate these lessons about responsibility and earned her teaching degree with honors. I was proud of the young woman she had become. After Lisa got married, I started noticing changes in how she and Michael viewed money and family relationships. Michael had grown up in a wealthy family where everything was handed to him. He seemed to expect the same treatment from me without earning it or showing proper gratitude. "James, successful people help their family members succeed too," he would say when asking for money. The first time I gave them substantial financial help was when they bought their house 5 years ago. They needed an extra $20,000 for the down payment because Michael had quit his job right before the purchase. "Dad, we found the perfect house, but we need your help to make it happen," Lisa explained. "I gave them the money because I wanted my grandchildren to have a stable home. But that $20,000 gift seemed to open the floodgates for constant requests for financial assistance. Car repairs, vacation funding, business startup costs, and everyday expenses that they should have been able to handle themselves. Each request was presented as an emergency or a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that required my immediate help. What bothered me most was that Michael never seemed to learn from these financial rescues. Instead of budgeting better or making smarter decisions, he would take bigger risks knowing that I would bail them out. "James has plenty of money," I heard him tell Lisa once. "He won't miss 20 or 30,000 here and there." That comment showed me exactly how he viewed my generosity. Over the past 5 years, I estimate that I gave Lisa and Michael over $200,000 in various forms of financial support. House payments, car loans, business investments, and family expenses that they couldn't afford on their own income. But instead of becoming more grateful, they seemed to become more entitled to my help. The pattern was always the same. They would call with some financial crisis that needed immediate attention. I would write them a check to solve the problem. They would be thankful for about a week, then go back to their normal lives until the next emergency arose. There was never any discussion about paying me back or changing their spending habits. Meanwhile, my wealth continued growing through smart investments and business expansion. I sold Patterson Software Solutions for $35 million in 2015, but kept Patterson Data Services and started a third company focused on cybersecurity. My real estate investments and stock portfolio added millions more to my net worth over the years. But Lisa and Michael seemed to think my success was their success too. They would brag to their friends about their wealthy father who could afford to help with any financial problem. "Don't worry about money," Michael would tell people. "Lisa's dad has us covered." They were spending my reputation along with my cash. The most frustrating part was that they never asked about the work and sacrifice that built this wealth. 60-hour weeks for decades, business risks that could have bankrupted us, and constant stress about meeting payroll and keeping customers happy. They saw only the results, not the effort that created their comfortable safety net. Helen would have been disappointed in how Lisa turned out regarding money and family values. "James, we raised her better than this," she would have said. But Helen died before Lisa's entitled attitude fully developed, so she never saw how our daughter learned to take advantage of my generosity. Last Sunday's family dinner was about to show me exactly what Lisa and Michael really thought about the man who had made their comfortable lifestyle possible. Let me take you back to that terrible Sunday dinner when Michael said the words that changed everything between us. It was a beautiful evening in early September, and I had invited the whole family over for dinner. I cooked everyone's favorite meal: barbecue ribs, corn on the cob, and homemade apple pie for dessert. The grandchildren were excited to spend time with Grandpa, and everything seemed normal and happy. After dinner, Emma and Tyler went to play video games in the family room while the adults sat in my living room. Lisa was telling me about her students at school, and I was enjoying hearing about her work as a teacher. These moments reminded me of why family was so important to me, especially since Helen died 6 years ago. The conversation was pleasant until I mentioned my recent trip to Italy and France. The food was incredible, and the history was amazing, I told them. At my age, I want to see the world while I still can. Lisa seemed happy that I was getting out and enjoying life after being sad for so long after losing her mother. But then Michael made a comment that started to change the whole mood of our evening together. "James, don't you think you're spending too much money on these expensive vacations?" he asked with a concerned tone. "Maybe you should be thinking more about saving money for the family's future instead of traveling so much." I was surprised by his criticism of how I spent my own money. "Michael, I worked hard for 45 years to build my wealth," I replied calmly. "I think I've earned the right to enjoy some of it while I'm still healthy enough to travel." Lisa was looking uncomfortable as the conversation became more tense between her husband and her father. "Besides, I have more than enough money for both travel and family security." That's when Michael started revealing his true feelings about my role in their family's financial future. "James, Lisa, and I have been talking about your spending habits and what it means for our family," he said seriously. "We're concerned that you're not being responsible with money that could benefit your grandchildren someday." I couldn't believe he was lecturing me about financial responsibility. "What exactly are you trying to say, Michael?" I asked directly, feeling my anger starting to rise. Lisa was looking at her husband like she wanted him to stop talking, but he kept going anyway. "Are you telling me how I should spend my own money that I earned through my own hard work?" Michael was crossing a line that no son-in-law should ever cross with his wife's father. Michael took a deep breath before he said something that shocked me completely about his attitude toward our relationship. "James, the truth is that Lisa and I think you're being selfish with your money," he said bluntly. "You're spending thousands on trips and luxury items while your family struggles with everyday expenses." I felt like someone had slapped me across the face with his ungrateful accusation. "Struggles?" I asked in disbelief. "Michael, I've given you over $200,000 in the past 5 years. I was trying to keep my voice down because the grandchildren were in the next room. Your house, your cars, your business, and your lifestyle have all been subsidized by my generosity." Lisa was shaking her head at Michael, trying to get him to stop this confrontation. But Michael wasn't finished insulting me and my relationship with their family. "That's exactly what I'm talking about, James," he continued with growing confidence. "You give us money when we ask, but then you act like we should be grateful forever." His sense of entitlement was incredible to witness from someone I had helped so much over the years. "You should be grateful, Michael," I said firmly. "Most people don't have a father-in-law who can afford to help with major financial problems." I was starting to understand that Michael saw my generosity as an obligation rather than a gift from someone who loved his family. "Everything you have today exists because I've been willing to help when you needed it." That's when Michael said the words that ended our relationship as I knew it and changed my entire estate plan. "James, here's the thing," he said with a cold smile. "Lisa's business is doing well now, and my company is finally making real money." I listened as he explained their improved financial situation. "We don't need you anymore." The room went completely quiet after Michael said those devastating words. Lisa looked horrified by what her husband had just said to her father. "Michael, that's not what we discussed," she whispered urgently, but the damage was already done, and I had heard exactly how they really felt about me. "We don't need you anymore," I repeated slowly, making sure I understood correctly. After 45 years of building wealth, 20 years of raising Lisa, and 5 years of financial support for their family, this was their way of saying thank you. "That's very interesting, Michael. Thank you for being so honest about your feelings." I stood up from my chair and walked to the kitchen to start cleaning dishes. My hands were shaking with anger and hurt as I processed what had just happened in my own living room. The man I had welcomed into my family and supported financially for years had just told me I was no longer needed or wanted. Lisa followed me into the kitchen with tears in her eyes. "Dad, Michael didn't mean it the way it sounded," she said desperately. "He's just proud that we're becoming more financially independent." But I could see in her expression that she agreed with her husband's sentiment about not needing me anymore. "Lisa, it's fine," I said calmly, though my heart was breaking inside. "I understand exactly what Michael meant." I hugged my grandchildren goodbye and watched as they all left my house that night. As soon as their car pulled out of my driveway, I made the decision that would change everything for their future. The next morning, I called my estate attorney to completely rewrite my $67 million will. After Michael told me they didn't need me anymore, I spent that entire night in my home office looking at my financial records. I needed to see exactly what I had given Lisa and Michael over the years, to understand the true cost of supporting a family that saw me as disposable once they didn't need my money anymore. I pulled out my bank statements, canceled checks, and investment records from the past 5 years. The numbers told a painful story about generosity that was never appreciated or respected. I spread all the documents across my desk and started adding up every dollar I had given them. House down payment assistance, car loans, business startup money, and countless emergency funds that kept their lifestyle comfortable. $53,000 last year alone in various forms of financial help. I found the canceled check for $20,000 I gave them for their house down payment 5 years ago. Michael had promised to pay me back within 2 years once his career got established. That was 3 years ago, and he had never mentioned repayment again. Instead, he acted like the money was a gift he deserved, rather than a loan I expected to be returned. Then I found records of the business loans I had given Michael for his various entrepreneurial attempts over the years. $15,000 for a consulting company that failed after 6 months. $25,000 for a real estate investment that lost money. $18,000 for his current marketing business that barely breaks even. Total business investments: $58,000 with zero return on investment. But the regular financial help was even more expensive over time than the big loans. Monthly assistance with their mortgage when Michael's income was inconsistent. Car repairs and insurance payments when they couldn't afford both kids and transportation costs. Vacation funding so my grandchildren could have family trips and memories. These smaller amounts added up to over $70,000 in 5 years. I also calculated the indirect financial benefits I had provided through my business connections and reputation. Referrals that brought clients to Michael's marketing company. Recommendations that helped Lisa get her teaching position at the best school in the district. Professional networking that opened doors they never could have accessed on their own. These benefits were worth tens of thousands in additional income over the years. The total amount I had invested in Lisa and Michael's comfort and success was staggering when I added everything together. Direct financial assistance, $212,000. Indirect professional benefits, estimated $50,000 value. My total investment in their family's lifestyle, $262,000 over 5 years. $262,000 given freely to people who told me they didn't need me anymore once their own finances improved. More money than most people make in 5 years of full-time work. All of it provided because I loved my daughter and wanted my grandchildren to have opportunities and security in their lives. But as I sat there looking at these financial records, I realized something even more painful than the money I had lost. Michael and Lisa had never once asked about my own needs or emotional well-being since Helen died 6 years ago. Every conversation was about what I could do for them, never about how I was coping with loneliness or adjusting to retirement. When Helen was alive, Lisa called us every few days just to talk and stay connected with her parents. After the funeral, those calls became less frequent and more focused on their financial problems that needed my immediate attention. "Dad, we're so sorry for your loss, but we have this mortgage payment due," became the typical conversation pattern. I pulled out my current financial statements to see what my $67 million estate looked like today. 3 successful companies worth a combined $42 million. Commercial real estate properties worth $18 million. Stock portfolio and liquid investments worth $7 million. Everything I had worked 45 years to build and accumulate. Looking at these numbers made Michael's words even more insulting and short-sighted than I had realized during our dinner conversation. "We don't need you anymore," was his way of saying goodbye to $67 million in inheritance that he thought was guaranteed to his family. Little did he know that my estate plan was about to change dramatically. My original will left everything to Lisa, with provisions for the grandchildren's education and future security. Michael would have controlled most of that wealth as Lisa's husband and financial decision-maker for their family. The man who told me I was no longer needed was counting on inheriting millions of dollars that he felt entitled to receive. But sitting there in my office that night, I started thinking about people and organizations that actually appreciated my generosity over the years. The Children's Hospital, where Helen and I had volunteered for decades. The scholarship fund we established at the local community college. The homeless shelter that needed funding for expansion and programs. These charitable organizations never told me they didn't need me anymore when their situations improved. They understood that my support was a gift, not an obligation or entitlement. Their gratitude was genuine and ongoing, not conditional on what I could do for them next. They valued my involvement as a person, not just my money as a resource. I also thought about my employees at all 3 companies who had helped build my wealth through their hard work and loyalty. Many of them had been with me for 15 or 20 years, growing the businesses that made my fortune possible. They deserved to benefit from our shared success more than a son-in-law who saw me as disposable. That night, I made the decision that would change everything for Lisa and Michael's financial future. Tomorrow, I would call my estate attorney to completely rewrite my will and redirect my $67 million legacy to people who actually valued what I had built. The next morning, I woke up with a clear plan about what I needed to do with my $67 million estate. Michael thought he could tell me they didn't need me anymore while expecting to inherit my fortune someday. He had no idea that his insulting words had just cost his family the biggest financial opportunity of their lifetime. It was time to show everyone who really controlled the family money and who deserved to benefit from my life's work. I spent the morning organizing my strategy for maximum impact on their understanding of consequences. This wasn't going to be some emotional outburst or dramatic confrontation that they could dismiss. This was going to be a calculated legal action that would permanently change their financial future. If they didn't need me anymore, then they didn't need my money when I died either. I decided to start by calling my estate attorney to schedule an immediate meeting about rewriting my will completely. Robert Mitchell had been handling my legal affairs for 15 years and knew my family situation well. "Robert, I need to make major changes to my estate plan," I told him over the phone. We need to meet this week to discuss redirecting my entire inheritance away from my daughter and son-in-law. James, that's a significant decision. Robert replied with concern in his voice. Are you sure you want to make such drastic changes to your family's financial future? I explained Michael's insulting comment about not needing me anymore and their years of taking my generosity for granted. I understand your feelings, but maybe you should think about this for a few weeks before making permanent changes. Robert, I've been thinking about this for years, I told him firmly. Last night's conversation just confirmed what I already suspected about their attitude toward me and my money. I scheduled a meeting for Thursday afternoon to begin the legal process of changing my will. I want every dollar redirected to people and organizations that actually appreciate what I've built. But I didn't want to stop with just changing my will document. I wanted to send a clear message about respect and gratitude that would educate my entire family. I decided to also revise all my other estate planning documents, including trusts, business succession plans, and charitable giving strategies. Lisa and Michael would discover that their financial security depended entirely on someone they thought was disposable. My plan was to redirect my wealth to three main categories of recipients who had earned my respect over the years. First, charitable organizations that Helen and I had supported throughout our marriage. The Children's Hospital, Community College Scholarship Fund, and homeless shelter that had always appreciated our contributions. These groups understood that generosity was a gift, not an obligation. Second, my loyal employees who had helped build my companies into successful enterprises worth millions of dollars. Key managers and long-term workers who had contributed to my wealth through their dedication and hard work. They deserved to benefit from our shared success more than family members who felt entitled to money they hadn't earned. Third, educational institutions that were training the next generation of business leaders and innovators. Technology programs at local universities that needed funding for equipment and research. Scholarship funds for students who showed promise but lacked financial resources. These investments would create lasting value beyond just enriching ungrateful family members. I calculated how to distribute my $67 million estate among these deserving recipients. $25 million to various charitable organizations that had meaningful impact on our community. $20 million to employee profit sharing and retirement funds for people who helped build my companies. $22 million to educational institutions and scholarship programs that would benefit future generations. This distribution plan would ensure that my life's work continued creating positive value long after I was gone. Instead of funding Michael's entitled lifestyle, my money would help sick children, homeless families, and ambitious students achieve their dreams. The contrast between deserving recipients and ungrateful family members was clear and morally satisfying. But I also wanted Lisa to understand exactly what Michael's words had cost their family's financial future. I decided to leave her exactly $1 in my will with a specific message about why she was essentially disinherited. The legal document would explain that her husband's statement about not needing me anymore was taken seriously and honored in my estate planning. The timing of revealing this will change would be crucial for maximum educational impact. I wasn't going to tell them immediately about the new estate plan. I wanted them to continue assuming they would inherit millions someday, while I quietly redirected their expected fortune to more deserving recipients. Only after my death would they discover the cost of their disrespectful attitude. I also planned to document their years of financial dependence and ungrateful behavior in case they tried to contest the will after I died. Bank records showing hundreds of thousands in financial assistance over the years. Canceled checks for house payments, car loans, and business investments that were never repaid. Evidence that they had taken advantage of my generosity while showing no appreciation or respect. My estate attorney would need to make the new will bulletproof against any legal challenges from disappointed family members. Clear documentation of my mental competence, detailed explanations for my decisions, and proper legal procedures that couldn't be overturned in court. Lisa and Michael would learn that actions have permanent consequences they couldn't change or appeal. The most important part of my plan was to stay calm and normal in my interactions with them while the legal changes were happening. I wasn't going to give them any warning about what was coming or chance to apologize their way back into my good graces. They had made their feelings clear about not needing me anymore, and I was simply honoring their stated preferences. Tomorrow, I would begin the legal process that would change everything about their expected financial future. 3 weeks passed after I met with my estate attorney to rewrite my will completely. I had been acting normal around Lisa and Michael, giving them no hint about the legal changes happening behind the scenes. They had no idea that Michael's insulting words had cost them $67 million in inheritance. But secrets have a way of coming out, especially in a small town where everyone knows everyone else's business. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone started ringing with Lisa's panicked voice. "Dad, we need to talk right away," she said urgently. "Can we come over to your house tonight after the kids go to bed?" I could hear the worry and stress in her voice, but I had no idea what had caused her sudden concern about our relationship. "Of course, Lisa," I replied calmly. "Is everything okay with you and Michael?" I was genuinely curious about what had upset her so much that she needed an emergency family meeting. Did something happen at work or with the children that I should know about? Lisa was usually pretty calm about most family issues, so her panic was unusual. "Dad, just please be home tonight around 8 o'clock, she said, without explaining the reason for her urgent request. "We really need to discuss something important about our family." Then she hung up without saying goodbye, which was very unlike my daughter's normal, polite behavior. Something had definitely happened to make her this worried about talking to me. That evening, Lisa and Michael arrived at my house looking nervous and uncomfortable. "Hi, Dad," Lisa said as I opened the front door. "Thanks for meeting with us on such short notice." Michael was standing behind her, looking angry and worried at the same time. "We need to ask you about something we heard today from a friend." I invited them into my living room and offered coffee or drinks. "What's this all about?" I asked, settling into my favorite chair. Lisa and Michael sat on the couch across from me, and I could see they were both stressed about whatever they had discovered. "You both look like someone died or something terrible happened." Lisa took a deep breath before she started explaining why they had rushed over to confront me. "Dad, Michael's friend works at Robert Mitchell's law office," she said nervously. "He mentioned that you had been in for several meetings recently about estate planning changes." My heart started beating faster as I realized someone had leaked information about my will revisions. "Dad, is it true that you're changing your will?" Michael asked directly, trying to control his obvious anger about the situation. "Because if you are, we think you should discuss major decisions like that with your family first." I was amazed by his sense of entitlement to be involved in my personal financial planning and legal affairs. I stayed calm as I answered their question about my estate planning activities. "Yes, I've been meeting with my attorney recently," I confirmed matter-of-factly. "I'm 74 years old, and it's responsible to keep my legal affairs updated regularly." Lisa and Michael exchanged worried glances as they processed my admission about the meetings. "Dad, What kind of changes are you making to your estate plan? Lisa asked desperately. Are you adding charitable donations or setting up trusts for the grandchildren? I could see she was hoping the changes were minor additions rather than major revisions to their expected inheritance. I'm making the changes that I feel are appropriate for my situation, I replied, without giving them specific details. My estate planning is my personal business that I'll handle as I see fit. Michael was getting more agitated as he realized I wasn't going to explain my decisions to them. James, we have a right to know what you're planning with money that affects our family's future, Michael said with growing frustration. Lisa is your only child, and we need to understand how your decisions impact our financial security. His sense of entitlement to my money was incredible, especially after telling me they didn't need me anymore. That's when I decided to remind Michael of his own words from our dinner conversation 3 weeks earlier. Michael, didn't you tell me that you and Lisa don't need me anymore? I asked calmly. If you don't need me, then you don't need my money either. The room became very quiet as they realized their past words were coming back to haunt them. Dad, Michael didn't mean that the way it sounded, Lisa said quickly, trying to repair the damage from her husband's insulting comment. He was just proud that we're becoming more financially independent from your help. But I could see in her eyes that she understood the connection between Michael's words and my estate planning changes. Actually, I think Michael meant exactly what he said, I replied firmly. And I'm simply honoring your family's stated desire for independence from me. Michael was starting to panic as he realized his thoughtless words had serious financial consequences for their future. James, let's be reasonable about this, Michael said desperately. I may have expressed myself poorly, but we still want you to be part of our family. His sudden change in attitude was amusing to watch, but it was far too late to repair the damage he had caused. Michael, I am being reasonable, I told him calmly. You said you don't need me anymore, so I'm adjusting my estate plan accordingly. Lisa was crying as she began to understand that her husband's arrogance had cost them millions of dollars in inheritance. Dad, please don't make permanent decisions based on one misunderstanding, Lisa begged through her tears. We love you and want you in our lives forever. But I could see that her concern was more about money than about our actual relationship. The family that thought they didn't need me was about to learn exactly what that independence would cost them. After Lisa and Michael confronted me about changing my will, I realized I needed solid documentation to support my decisions. If they were going to challenge my estate planning changes, I wanted bulletproof evidence of their years of financial dependence and disrespectful behavior. I spent the next week gathering 20 years of records that told the complete story of our family relationship and their ungrateful attitude toward my generosity. I started by organizing every financial transaction I had made for Lisa's benefit since she became an adult. College tuition payments, graduation gifts, wedding expenses, and house down payment assistance. The early years showed a loving father supporting his daughter's dreams and future happiness. But the pattern changed dramatically after she married Michael, and his sense of entitlement infected their family dynamics. The college records were particularly interesting when I looked at them with fresh perspective. 4 years at State University, $68,000 in total costs. Lisa had thanked me at graduation and promised to make me proud with her teaching career. Back then, she understood that my financial support was a gift that required appreciation and good character in return. Her wedding expenses told a different story about changing attitudes toward my money. $35,000 for a celebration that Lisa and Michael planned without consulting my budget or preferences. "Dad, we want the perfect wedding, and we know you'll make it happen," Lisa had said. Even then, there were signs of growing entitlement to my financial resources. But the real evidence of financial abuse started after Michael joined our family permanently. The pattern was always the same. They would create financial problems through poor decisions, then expect me to solve them with immediate cash assistance. No discussion about budgeting, no promises to change their spending habits. Just demands for money disguised as loving family requests. I found the records of Michael's failed business ventures that I had funded over the years, the consulting company that lost $15,000 of my investment within 6 months, the real estate scheme that cost me $25,000 when it collapsed, his current marketing business that barely breaks even despite $18,000 in startup capital from me. What made these business failures particularly frustrating was Michael's attitude about losing my money. Instead of apologizing or taking responsibility, he would blame market conditions or bad luck for his incompetence. "These things happen in business, James," he would say dismissively. "At least we learned some valuable lessons for next time." Next time always involved asking for more money from me. I also documented their pattern of emotional manipulation whenever I hesitated to give them money. Lisa would bring the grandchildren over for visits right before asking for financial help. "Dad, Emma needs new school clothes, and Tyler wants to join the soccer team," she would say, while the kids were sitting right there listening. How could I say no to my grandchildren's needs, even when I knew the money would go toward their parents' poor financial planning? The housing assistance records were especially revealing about their long-term dependence on my wealth. Over the past 5 years, I had made mortgage payments for them 17 times when Michael's income was inconsistent. Each time they promised it was temporary help until his business situation stabilized. But the emergency payments kept coming every few months like clockwork. I calculated the total amount of housing assistance I had provided, $43,000 in mortgage payments that kept them from losing their house. Without my intervention, they would have faced foreclosure multiple times because of Michael's inability to manage money responsibly. Yet he had the nerve to tell me they didn't need me anymore when their situation temporarily improved. The car loan records showed another dimension of their financial dependence on me. 2 vehicle purchases where I provided down payments totaling $28,000, insurance payments when they couldn't afford coverage for both cars, repair costs that they couldn't handle on their own income. Their transportation would have been impossible without my ongoing financial support. But the most damaging evidence was their pattern of ingratitude and disrespect toward the person funding their lifestyle. Thank you notes that stopped coming after the first few years of marriage. Phone calls that focused only on their financial problems, never on my well-being since Helen died. Family gatherings where they would complain about their money troubles while sitting in a house I had helped them buy. I found emails and text messages that revealed their true feelings about my generosity over the years. "Dad always comes through when we need money," Lisa had written to her friend. "He feels guilty about not seeing us more often, so he writes checks to make up for it." This comment showed that she saw my financial help as guilt payments rather than loving support. Michael's messages to his friends were even more insulting about my role in their financial security. "My father-in-law has more money than he knows what to do with," he had texted someone. "We're just helping him spend it on worthwhile causes like his family." His attitude treated my wealth like it was community property that he could access whenever convenient. I also documented their resistance to any suggestions about financial responsibility or budgeting. Every time I tried to discuss their spending habits or long-term planning, they would change the subject or get defensive. "We're adults who can manage our own finances," Michael would say, while asking for another loan the following week. The evidence clearly showed a pattern of financial abuse disguised as family relationships. 20 years of taking my money while showing no genuine appreciation, respect, or consideration for my feelings as Lisa's father. They had trained me to be their personal bank account, while treating me like a burden when they didn't need immediate cash. Tomorrow, I would present all this documentation to my attorney to ensure my will changes could never be successfully challenged in court. 6 months after I finished gathering all the evidence against Lisa and Michael, my health started declining rapidly. The stress of their disrespect had taken a toll on my heart, and the doctors said I didn't have much time left. But I lived long enough to see my final plan come together perfectly. Today, I want to tell you about the will reading that shocked everyone about where my $67 million really went. The reading took place at my attorney Robert Mitchell's office on a cold Tuesday morning in February. Lisa and Michael arrived expecting to inherit the fortune that would set them up for life. They had spent months being extra nice to me after discovering I was changing my will. "Dad, we love you so much," Lisa kept saying during my final weeks. But it was too little, too late for their damaged relationship with me. Robert had invited everyone who was mentioned in my new will to attend the reading. Lisa and Michael sat in the front row, holding hands and trying to look grief-stricken about losing me. Behind them sat the director of the children's hospital, the president of the community college, and the manager of the homeless shelter. These people had no idea why they were invited to my will reading. Also present were 5 of my longtime employees who had helped build my companies over the years. Sarah from accounting, who had worked for me for 22 years. Mike from construction, who started as a laborer and became my best project manager. These loyal workers looked confused about why they were at a lawyer's office instead of planning my funeral service. Robert began the reading with the standard legal language about my mental competence and the validity of the document. "James Patterson, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament," he read aloud to the assembled group. Lisa was smiling slightly, anticipating the moment when she would inherit everything I had worked my entire life to build. First, I want to explain why I made significant changes to my estate plan in the final months of my life. Robert continued reading my words. These decisions were based on careful consideration of who truly deserved to benefit from my success. Lisa and Michael looked at each other nervously as they realized this wasn't going to be the simple inheritance reading they expected. Robert read the section where I explained Michael's insulting comment about not needing me anymore. On September 15th, my son-in-law Michael told me during a family dinner that they didn't need me anymore. The will stated clearly, "I have decided to honor their stated independence by removing them from my estate planning entirely." Lisa gasped as she understood that Michael's words had been carefully documented and used against them. "Therefore, I leave to my daughter Lisa Patterson the sum of $1, with the explanation that her husband made their financial independence clear," Robert continued reading. The room was dead silent as everyone processed this shocking revelation about my primary heir receiving almost nothing. "I hope this $1 helps them maintain the independence they desired from me." Lisa started crying as the reality of her disinheritance hit her completely. "Dad can't be serious about this," she whispered to Michael. But Robert continued reading the detailed explanations I had written about their years of financial abuse and ungrateful behavior toward someone who had supported them generously. My wealth will instead go to people and organizations who have shown genuine appreciation for generosity over the years. Robert read from my will. These recipients understand that financial support is a gift to be valued, not an entitlement to be expected. Michael was turning red with anger as he realized their expected fortune was disappearing before their eyes. Robert then began announcing the real beneficiaries of my $67 million estate. To the Children's Hospital, I leave $20 million for expansion of their cancer treatment wing. The hospital director started crying with joy and disbelief at this unexpected windfall. To the Community College Foundation, I leave $15 million for scholarship programs for deserving students. The charitable donations continued as Robert read through my carefully planned giving strategy. To the homeless shelter, I leave $10 million for new facilities and programs. Each announcement brought tears of gratitude from recipients who had never expected such generosity. These organizations would use my money to help thousands of people over the years. To my loyal employees who helped build my success, I leave profit-sharing payments totaling $12 million, Robert announced. Sarah from accounting fainted when she realized she would receive $400,000 for her 22 years of faithful service. Mike from construction was crying as he learned about his $600,000 inheritance. The remaining $10 million will establish the Helen Patterson Foundation for Technology Education, Robert concluded. This foundation will honor my late wife's memory by funding computer science programs at local universities. Even in death, I was able to honor Helen's belief in education and innovation. Lisa and Michael sat in stunned silence as the will reading concluded with their complete disinheritance. "This can't be legal," Michael said desperately to Robert. "We're going to challenge this will in court immediately." But Robert explained that my estate planning had been carefully designed to prevent any successful legal challenges from disappointed family members. The people who told me they didn't need me anymore had just discovered exactly what that independence would cost them forever. Now let me tell you about what happened during my final 3 months alive, when Lisa and Michael discovered their inheritance was gone and desperately tried to win back my favor. After the confrontation at my attorney's office, they realized that Michael's insulting words had cost them $67 million in family wealth. But their sudden change in attitude only proved what I had suspected all along about their true motivations for wanting a relationship with me. The very next day after they learned about my will changes, Lisa called me crying and begging for forgiveness. "Dad, please don't let Michael's stupid comment destroy our family forever," she sobbed into the phone. "We need to fix this relationship before it's too late for all of us." I could hear the desperation in her voice as she understood the magnitude of what they had lost through their disrespectful behavior. "Lisa, what exactly do you want to fix?" I asked calmly. "Are you upset about losing your father, or are you upset about losing your inheritance?" The silence on the phone told me everything I needed to know about her real priorities. "Because 3 weeks ago, you and Michael made it very clear that you didn't need me in your lives anymore. That weekend, they showed up at my house with flowers, homemade cookies, and forced smiles that couldn't hide their panic about their financial future. Dad, we brought your favorite chocolate chip cookies," Lisa said with fake cheerfulness. "We thought we could spend some quality family time together like we used to do." Michael was standing behind her, looking uncomfortable about this obvious attempt to manipulate my emotions. "How thoughtful of you both," I replied, letting them into my house. We sat in the living room, where Michael had insulted me just a month earlier. What's the occasion for this unexpected family visit? I wanted to see how they would try to repair the damage they had caused to our relationship. Michael cleared his throat nervously before attempting his apology speech. James, I owe you a sincere apology for what I said during our last dinner, he began carefully. I didn't mean to suggest that we don't value you as Lisa's father and the children's grandfather. His words sounded rehearsed and calculated rather than genuinely remorseful about hurting my feelings. What did you mean then, Michael? I asked directly. Because you seemed pretty clear about not needing me anymore when your financial situation improved. Lisa was giving her husband warning looks to be more careful with his words. I'm curious about how you're going to explain away such a direct statement about my role in your family. Michael struggled to find words that would undo the damage without admitting his true feelings about my value to their family. James, I was trying to say that we're grateful for your help in getting us established financially, he said weakly. I wanted you to know that your support had been successful in making us more independent. But his explanation made his original insult even worse, by confirming that he saw me as temporary assistance rather than permanent family. Lisa tried to help her husband dig out of the hole he had created for their inheritance prospects. Dad, what Michael meant was that we're proud of how well we're doing because of everything you taught us, she said desperately. We'll always need you as our father and grandfather, regardless of money or financial situations. But her words rang hollow after years of treating me like a bank account rather than a beloved family member. Over the next 2 months, they increased their efforts to win back my favor and restore their place in my will. Lisa started calling me every day just to chat about ordinary things like weather and family activities. Dad, how are you feeling today? Became her new greeting instead of Dad. We need help with something. But this sudden interest in my well-being felt calculated and insincere. Michael began inviting me to family activities that he had never included me in before. James, would you like to come to Tyler's soccer game on Saturday? He would ask. We'd love to have you there cheering for your grandson. These invitations felt like desperate attempts to create positive memories that might influence my estate planning decisions. The grandchildren were obviously coached to be extra affectionate during my visits to their house. Grandpa, we love you so much, Emma would say, while giving me unusually long hugs. You're the best grandpa in the whole world. I could see Lisa and Michael watching hopefully as their children performed these emotional displays designed to soften my heart. But the most telling evidence of their true motivations came during a conversation about my health and future plans. Dad, are you feeling okay lately? Lisa asked with fake concern. Maybe you should see a doctor for a complete checkup. I realized she was worried about me dying before they could manipulate their way back into my good graces and inheritance. 3 weeks before I died, Lisa made one final desperate attempt to restore their financial future with me. Dad, I know we've had some misunderstandings, but family should forgive each other, she said through tears. Please don't let temporary hurt feelings change permanent decisions about our family's future. Her use of the word temporary showed that she still didn't understand the depth of damage they had caused. Lisa, this isn't about hurt feelings, I explained calmly. This is about respect, gratitude, and genuine love versus financial manipulation. I looked at both of them sitting in my living room with their false apologies and calculated kindness. You've shown me who you really are when you don't need my money, and I believe you. My final decision about the family money was based on 20 years of evidence about their true character and priorities. They had trained me to be their personal ATM while showing no genuine appreciation or affection for me as a person. Michael's comment about not needing me anymore was just the final confirmation of what I had suspected for years. The last thing I told them before I died was this: actions have consequences that apologies can't undo. Even though I'm no longer alive to see it directly, I want to tell you exactly how my $67 million decision brought perfect justice and peace to my story. 6 months have passed since my will reading shocked Lisa and Michael about their complete disinheritance. From where I am now, I can see that everything worked out exactly as I planned for everyone involved in this situation. The charitable organizations that received my wealth have used every dollar to help people who truly needed assistance. The Children's Hospital used their $20 million to build a new cancer treatment wing that has already saved dozens of young lives. The James Patterson Wing now helps families who can't afford expensive medical care for their children. My money is creating hope instead of funding entitled lifestyles. The community college used their $15 million to establish scholarship programs for students from low-income families. Over 200 young people have received full tuition assistance to pursue degrees in technology and business. These students work hard for their education and understand that my generosity was a gift to be earned through good character and academic achievement. The homeless shelter expanded their facilities and programs using their $10 million inheritance from my estate. They now provide job training, mental health services, and temporary housing for over 300 people every month. My wealth is helping people rebuild their lives rather than subsidizing the comfortable lifestyle of ungrateful family members. My loyal employees who received profit-sharing payments have used their inheritances wisely and gratefully. Sarah from accounting paid off her house and started a college fund for her grandchildren. Mike from construction bought equipment to start his own business and employs 5 other people. They understood that my generosity was recognition for years of faithful service and hard work. The Helen Patterson Foundation for Technology Education has awarded grants to 12 universities for computer science programs and research. Hundreds of students are learning skills that will help them build successful careers and contribute to society. Helen would be proud that our wealth is advancing education and innovation like we always dreamed about during our marriage. Meanwhile, Lisa and Michael have learned exactly what independence costs when you reject the person who made your comfortable life possible. Without my financial safety net, they had to sell their expensive house and move to a smaller home they could actually afford. Michael's struggling business finally failed completely without my connections and emergency funding to keep it alive. Lisa had to take a second job tutoring students to help pay their bills without my monthly assistance for mortgage and car payments. The children had to leave their expensive private school and adjust to public education like most families manage every day. They're learning to live within their actual means instead of depending on someone else's wealth. Lisa tried to contest my will in court, claiming I wasn't mentally competent when I made the changes. But my attorney, Robert Mitchell, had documented everything perfectly, including medical records proving my sound mind and detailed explanations for every decision. The judge dismissed their case within 3 months and ordered them to pay the court costs. Michael had to find a regular job working for someone else after his entrepreneurial dreams collapsed without my financial backing. He now understands what most people deal with every day, working hard for a steady paycheck instead of expecting handouts from wealthy relatives. The man who told me they didn't need me anymore discovered exactly what that independence would cost. The most satisfying part of this outcome is seeing how my grandchildren are actually better off without growing up entitled to wealth they didn't earn. Emma and Tyler are learning about hard work, budgeting, and gratitude because their parents can no longer provide everything they want immediately. These lessons will serve them better than inheriting millions of dollars at 18 years old. Looking back on this entire experience, I learned crucial lessons about family relationships and financial boundaries that every person should understand. First, generosity without appreciation creates entitlement instead of gratitude in family members. By constantly rescuing Lisa and Michael from their financial problems, I had enabled their irresponsible behavior and ungrateful attitude toward my sacrifices. Second, actions really do have permanent consequences that apologies cannot undo after the damage is done. Michael's insulting comment about not needing me anymore revealed his true feelings about my value to their family. Once someone shows you who they really are, you should believe them and plan accordingly for your future relationships. Most importantly, I learned that standing up for yourself and demanding respect doesn't destroy family bonds. It reveals which relationships were genuine to begin with. Lisa and Michael only valued me when they needed my money, not when they had achieved temporary financial stability. Real family members don't tell you they don't need you anymore when their situation improves. Today, my wealth is creating lasting positive change in the world, instead of funding the comfortable lifestyle of people who saw me as disposable. Sick children are getting medical treatment, deserving students are receiving educational opportunities, and homeless families are finding shelter and support. My life's work continues helping people who understand that generosity is a gift to be valued and appreciated. At 74 years old when I died, I had the satisfaction of knowing that justice was perfectly served. The daughter and son-in-law who thought I was unnecessary discovered exactly what my support had meant to their security and comfort. Setting clear consequences for disrespectful behavior protected my legacy from people who would have wasted it on entitled spending. The family that told me they didn't need me anymore learned they were completely wrong about their independence and my importance. My final act as a father was teaching Lisa about respect, consequences, and the real meaning of family loyalty. If I couldn't have their genuine love and appreciation, then at least I achieved perfect justice and peace. If you are still here and enjoyed this story, please like this video. It really helps me know you want more content like this. If this story gave you some value or made you think, please share it with your friends or someone who needs to hear this message. If you have any questions or suggestions about this story, please type them in the comments below. I love reading what you think. If you want more stories like this one, please subscribe to this channel. There are many more stories coming. Remember, you teach people how to treat you by what behavior you're willing to accept.